Let's bring in our good friend Jessi Pierce now from NHL.com, where she covers the Minnesota Wild and also Bar Down Beauty's podcast. Jessi, welcome back to the program. And obviously, we brought you on to talk Minnesota Wild hockey. Not a great outcome in their most recent game, a 6-0 spank job at LA. Doesn't help the playoff push very much, does it?
No, I was really disappointed in the way that they performed last night. They've done this numerous times, Minnesota has, where they go into these situations that are must win, like they did in LA last night, and just blow a tire, drop an egg. Either they fall apart in the third period, they don't show up. And right now they need 2 points in every situation. They had been on a nice little point streak, and now they've kind of not quite eliminated. I'm not going to say that word yet, but it's certainly not making their chances any easier to get into the playoffs, as they need to vie for every point possible.
Yeah, they're just a few points out. But my biggest, broadest question for you is this. How would you describe this season? Knowing full well it's not over yet, but you've been covering them for quite a while. How would you describe this season?
Rod, it's a roller coaster I so desperately want to get off. It's been ups, it's been downs, but the downs have not been so fun. I mean, it started off this year when they fired head coach Dean Evason and rehired, John Hines, brought him in. He changed some things. There was a good winning streak going on, but it's been a lot of ups and downs, not to mention you never want to blame injuries, but the injuries to players that have been sustained by Minnesota have been detrimental. Currently, without Joel Eriksson and defenseman Jonas Brodin, it's not going to make it easier. They kind of put themselves behind the 8 ball early on. I'm proud of the way that they have pushed to make themselves still in contention, but it's been a very frustrating, inconsistent roller coaster of a season.
I want to say something. You say you're proud of them. I'm proud of you because you are not part of a term I just heard the other day, the hot take media. You're not that. You don't get into the fake news and all the stuff that I see. And I used to. I don't anymore because it's exhausting. But, the talk of the Flower being traded and so forth, at the end of the day, he never was. I mean, what do you see as the future for him? Like, do you think, when they came through here in Sunrise, I was one of the many people down at ice level taking photos because I thought it might be his last time that he'd come through. How much longer is this guy going to play, do you think?
I mean, with last night as an exception, he has been absolutely tremendous. He was named this week's NHL third star for helping and willing Minnesota into good position. Coming into this year, Marc-Andre Fleury was not supposed to be the starting goaltender. That job was going to be Philip Gustafsson's. Philip Gustafsson was going to have the lion's share of starts. Marc-Andre Fleury was okay with that, and it did. It kind of felt like it would be his farewell tour. But with an injury to Philip Gustafsson early on in the year, and then just a lot of inconsistent play from Gus, Marc-Andre Fleury's really stepped up, and sometimes he's making you forget that he's 39 years old, the way that he was saving games. Again, last night, an exception. But I can see Marc-Andre Fleury playing another year. You're seeing right now, I asked him last week, usually he has been in a position where the team has already been in the playoffs. And right now he's trying to help and will a team into the playoffs. And he said he really likes that competition. He is a guy that is not ready to hang them up. I would not be surprised if he stuck around. And frankly, I would not be surprised if he ends up staying in Minnesota and the Wild and Bill Guerin look at Philip Gustafsson's contract extension that he made just a year ago. I think Marc-Andre Fleury would be a great mentor. Love having him around the locker room. And he still has some juice left in that box. So I would think you'll get another year, Marc-Andre. And obviously, biasly, I'd love to see him stay here in Minnesota.
You know what? I'm glad I asked. And that's wonderful analysis. And what I saw here was that he was the first on the ice for the Wild. He was the last off from warm-up, and he loves it. He still loves it. So if he loves it and he's playing well, why should he have to quit? And I think somewhere along the line, you told me that he's got a pretty good relationship with Bill Guerin, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that goes back to their time in Pittsburgh together. And Bill Guerin, you mentioned the trade talk and all of the hot takes there. Bill Guerin did say if Marc-Andre Fleury would like a trade, he has earned that respect. Marc-Andre Fleury has earned that for himself. And Flower told media here in Minnesota, no, that's not the case. I'm very happy here. This is my team. I'm not looking to get out. So certainly that also lends itself to looking at another year. I think he likes it here in Minnesota. Who doesn't when it's not snowing in April and May? But, I do. I think that relationship with Billy, I think the relationship he's built with the team, and obviously he takes his family into consideration with every single move that he makes. And I think they seem to be happy here. So, yeah, he's still a kid playing the game of hockey. I think that's what makes it really hard for him to say goodbye.
You know what, though? I don't know if the Wild are going to make the playoffs or not. I picked them to not. And if they don't, I would think some fans are going to want a rebuild. And I don't think how do you sell a 40-year-old goalie to the fans as a rebuild? You know what I mean? Like, where does this team go from here this year, do you think?
Unfortunately for fans too, rebuild has never been in the vocabulary for the owner, Craig Leopold, or for Bill Guerin, even competitive rebuild. It's been touted that there's some very good prospects coming in. Murat Huznadinov just signed his entry-level contract after his season ended in the KHL. That's been great. Danilia Yurov is another Russian player that's expected to come over next year. So there's a lot of good stock that's supposed to be coming through. However, the big problem I have with Billy G, who we love, we trust here as the general manager in Minnesota, he signed a lot of older guys to contracts with a lot of no moves and no trades in place. That includes your Freddie Gaudreau's, your Marcus Foligno's, your Ryan Hartman's. So it's going to be very interesting. Now, there's one more year left of Zach Parise and Ryan Suter's contracts on the books, and then that finally gets released from the stranglehold that is keeping Bill Guerin kind of stuck in a place. So I don't think you're looking at a rebuild. I think you're going to have to continue to look at tweaks. You're going to have to continue to rely on these young players. That's what I want to see from this final stretch. I don't think Minnesota necessarily needs to go clamor and try their darndest to get into the playoffs, because you're right, Rod. I don't think it's there. I've said that from the beginning. This team is just not necessarily built for a run and for the playoffs, but I think it's a great opportunity to let these young kids really shine and make sure that you have that in place for the start of next season.
Last one. Not sure if you know, but you probably do. I consider Minnesotans honorary Canadians, and there's a lot of Vikings fans in Canada. A lot of our audience are Vikings fans. And I know that you are a fan and you follow them very closely. Who is their starting quarterback in week 1? Did they sign Sam Darnold to be that guy?
Dear Lord, I hope not. Kudos to Kirk Cousins' agent for getting anybody to commit to $100 million guaranteed for an aging quarterback who hasn't won anything, mind you. Kirk was either loved or hated here in Minnesota, so they certainly needed to move on from that. And again, good for Kirk getting his money and the guarantee in 4 years in Atlanta. Sam Darnold is not the starting quarterback. My hope, the Vikings have disappointed us in drafts in years past. My hope is they move up and they go get Drake May at number 3. I think that's very possible. Worst comes to worst, you get JJ McCarthy if you don't quite move up. But I think by the signing of Sam Darnold, you kind of were telling the fan base, hopefully, that means you are drafting high for a very good quarterback in this year's draft. But again, Minnesota, the last time that we were hoping that they would draft a quarterback, they did, but that quarterback was Christian Ponder in the first round, and I have never recovered from that. So hopefully it's a good QB and that young guy will get his first start, because I just don't see Sam Darnold. They have claimed Sam Darnold starts, but he's not going to be the guy to lead them anywhere this year.
Most notable thing about Christian Ponder is his wife. I don't even know where the hell Christian Ponder is anymore. I saw the athletic stadium rankings the other day. They had US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis as the greatest stadium in the NFL. Is it?
It's loud. Vikings fans certainly get into it. We got the whole Skol chant going, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It's not a hostile place to play. It's very fun, but it certainly makes it very difficult for opposing teams to come in. And it's new, right? New and sparkly and shiny. And it's got that beautiful glass feature and everything like that. So it is. It's a good facility. I can't complain too much.
Awesome. Jessi, I love chatting with you, sports. I appreciate it. Keep up the great work and enjoy the hockey.
You too, Rod. We'll talk to you soon.
Minnesota's Jessi Pierce from NHL.com on the Bar Down Beauties podcast.